Oklahoma. The Navion, the great name, the silver Navion, just had those back. Coast Scout, Brandon, that nine actually. Coast Scout letters. We did the annual in February, but there's some concern about whether the airplane had a failure or whether it was fuel. So when they took samples out of one tank, they couldn't get any samples. So I'm not going to point fingers at anybody, but I would say that probably starved is somebody had that.
Pump overall.
Anyway, they got us under investigation. So they decided it was what's not an investigation, it's just a question. Yeah. So they've already had a one-on-one.
I'm sure. Oh, for payroll. Yeah, we do now. We didn't used to, but we do now.
Automatic withdrawals.
Mhm. Yeah, works pretty good.
100% that thing that they're gonna start, instead of paying, they're gonna start. What is it? They're withdrawing them when due, we'll withdraw them every time payroll.
We're missing our,
That's what she just.
the reason it looks small is we're missing
I'll check with Jeremy.
two members.
She just got this,
We're missing our council member representative too. That's why it looks smaller. He's not a voting member. He's.
And the mayor's not here. So we're not gonna have Bobby. He's gone to Oklahoma, I think, left yesterday.
I told him with the mayor on
Or
the phone. He
Texas.
said he would try to get here, but it's not guaranteeing that.
Yeah,
So
he
other
said
than
he doubt he could come. Kelly and Gary are not here.
So Gary.
He can't come.
Right, but I don't know about Kelly. Has anybody heard?
I haven't heard anything from Kelly.
I've not either.
I mean, normally this is time to start. Should we wait a little more?
I mean, no, we're ready to go.
Okay.
He has come in,
Yeah,
like
he
a
has.
time or
That's
two.
right.
So
Okay. Well, seeing it's the appointed time and hour, we'll call this meeting to order. Darn, I didn't see a roll call going through.
Uh-oh. You need what? I know.
Yeah,
down up here, I got my.
we will start a roll call here in a minute. We'll send a sheet by. In the meantime, next up is approval of the agenda, and I have several requests to make some changes to the agenda. First, I'll look for a motion to add to new business discussion of grant funds available. And then I guess we can do this in one motion, switch new business above old business. So I need a motion if somebody wants to.
I'll move.
I'll make a motion to approve the changes to the agenda. That's right.
Heard a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Okay, motion in a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Agenda has been adjusted. Next up, citizen comments. Under citizens here, anyone want to comment?
Am I a citizen?
You're a citizen.
Okay, I have a request more than a comment. In the last year, 6 months, 8 months, whatever this month this is, our activity at our facility has rather accelerated with the addition of the flight school. And if you don't know, on the 17th of April, we've added avionics to our venue. So we are out of space, okay, literally out of space for employees to park, and we're out of space for airplanes to park they're everywhere, okay? So the request I have is one is I want the 2 trees removed next to hangar 6, and that make gravel, which is about 25 or 30 feet wide by maybe 80 feet long. It's already gravel part of it, but get rid of the trees and make it all so I can do employee and customer parking in there. The second thing is I know I've probably mentioned this before, all the grace area in front of my hangars, all the way up to the taxi lights, all the way up to the taxiway. I'd like to have that asphalt on both sides, because I do not have enough space to do business in that building or to park airplanes. There's not enough room. You go up there and look now, we got them stacked on one another. I do not have enough space to park airplanes. So that is my request. And I know I'm old and gray and all that stuff, and you think I was going to retire, but I'm not through yet. I'm not through. But But the parking issue would be easy to solve because the trees need to come down anyway because they're half dead. And just gravel that, just like it's, part of it's already gravel. Becky, I think, did the gravel spreading on that before we did.
It was leftovers from the,
Yeah, so that would be the easiest thing, but we're out of parking space for cars and employees and customers. So if we could get that considered and see what we can do about the asphalt to expand until we can build some more buildings at some point and take us more space. Question?
Yeah, how many parking spaces do you anticipate picking up? With the-
That would be about 80, it'd be about 70 feet long. So if you put them in where they just pull in, that would be, they're roughly 9 foot, 10 foot. So it'd be around eight more
Eight
spaces.
to nine cars, so.
I mean, we're parking in there already, but it's,
So am I hearing that other people aside from your employees are parking in your? I don't know if it's.
no, my customers are parking there when they come.
Customers, okay, and they leave it overnight or whatever.
Yeah, right. So some of them bring their cars, like Nicholas Rector brought his car over the weekend and left it because he's gonna bring his airplane tonight,
Right,
so he's got to wait to
right,
get back
right.
home. So, and that's pretty common for us to have somebody's car parking.
I understand, I thought it was students or.
No,
Other people.
no, this is all mostly everything related to what we do.
Yeah.
But the gravel, like I say, the gravel would be taken down 2 trees and I'll save the wood for firewood. And just gravel that so we can park on this, not a big thoroughfare kind of thing. But I'd like for you to consider it, whatever we need to do.
It's taking down the trees, Paul, something that's our guys can do with no cost, huh? No concerns about taking down, they're pretty scrubby trees like that.
oh yeah, the trees that I've been wanting to go away for a while. We took care of one that there were originally, I think, 3 or 4 there. And we've taken half of them down. We just waiting till the proper time to make that happen. Because like you said, he's got a lot of people parking there.
Yeah,
It's not always safe because my guys are not.
they're not the greatest at get that tree to fall right where they want it.
Yes,
We
exactly.
can get a bucket truck or something and persuade to go the right way.
Yeah, we'll persuade it to the right
But
direction.
I think that the stumps, if they're cut level like they were and just fill in that with gravel, make it, I don't think the stumps even have to be grounded to make it, because when James cut those others down, I mean, they're almost, we drive over them, so they're not sticking up enough to cause any kind of problem, as long as they're smooth cut.
On your ramp side, Charles, where you want to put asphalt in, what, are you gonna need to have any kind of grading done, or you just
I think that they will have to grade it.
a little bit?
I mean,
It's not
I
that
think they have
much
to dig
there.
it down to make it match the other.
Right,
It
it's the
can't
same
just go
level.
over the dirt.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
So-
took a picture out on his ramp when Charles mentioned it. to
Oh, well,
me.
it's not as bad as I remember then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
But the
Just
ones-
shows you he's got planes parked
Isn't that
everywhere.
bad?
Yeah, the one side, if you, on the north side of my taxiway that comes straight down, is the hardest. It's very hard, even in the wintertime, we still use that. But if it's raining, it gets slick or a little bit
Right.
muddy. But the right side over there where the flight school is parking will need a little more preparation there, because it's not been driven on as much to pack it down. But, and we're adding one more airplane to the flight school later on this year, so there'll be 5 of them parked there. And, so, like I say, I'm running out of space. I'm gonna have to start looking for space somewhere to do stuff.
So it
So,
sounds like the trees is an easy one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Gravel is that something we have or have access to?
We would have to purchase it. We don't have it.
What do we need to do here today to? I mean, we don't have to make a motion or anything for you to take the trees down, right? You can just,
So you don't, and you can't, that's not on your agenda.
gotcha. Okay.
So I assume there needs to be a little work, some investigation on that. I don't know anything about cost, who's paying for it.
Mhm.
Yeah, we'll measure it out, see what kind of, we'll bring back some information to you.
Great, okay. Well, I guess that's all we can do to get the ball started.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Any other citizens? No? Okay. Next up is approval of minutes of the previous meeting of May 23rd, 2024. I've read them over. I have no questions about them.
I'm happy with them as well. I moved that we adopt the minutes. Thank you.
Second, all in favor? Aye. That passes unanimous. We're up to Paul's reports.
Should have a hard copy there for you. Your place. You can see it's sort of short because I've put photos in there instead, just because I think sometimes, as they say, photos are a lot better than words on a lot of occasions. But the biggest part over the last month is, of course, with a little bit of rain, our maintenance crews have been going crazy. Lately, it's dried up enough that they've been able to finally get caught up, but there for a while, that's all they were doing was living on the mowers because of all the rain we've had. But also with that, with the rain stopping and the construction has ramped up. As you can see, you can get a chance to go out, welcome to go out and take a look and see what's going on. But the biggest part, of course, is the hangar construction. One of the ones, the two of them are on the agenda, or three of them are on the agenda actually. So we'll talk about those a little bit more in detail later. But that's the biggest part, was just all the different construction projects that are working through the process. The one that you see that's on the photo on the front page there, that's the blank area. The only reason why it's blank is because they're waiting on the metal package to get here. They delayed the order a little bit. And so that's the only issue on that one. There's not really another holdup. They are doing some drainage work across the front of it. It's what you see. The right there behind the lift is some drainage that they're working on. But with one of the things that we'll also talk about later on the agenda that I mentioned on here just briefly was the fact that there was a mistake made by the contractor because of some miscommunication on some removal of some vegetation and some other things like that up there at behind the feed store. And so with that mistake, we actually were able to get the door reopened with some discussion for land acquisition. So that's some of the things we'll get to talk about here in just a minute. Going down through, you can see the fuel numbers that we have there. Even with a slight increase in operations there for this last report versus the previous one. Fuel purchase was down just a little bit, but proceeds are similar. Just because of the way that the pricing has been recently, we've been able to make that work. Still quite a few different names here on the business usages that you see from all over the place. But surprisingly, there's still some more that are kind of local that are coming through. Some different businesses that are utilizing the airport for either charter service or coming in for maintenance with Charles's group. But, of course, following on down through on the maintenance side of things, we've gotten loads of both Jet A and Avgas since the last meeting, and had a load delivered today. As a matter of fact, another load. The hose on our Avgas truck has been replaced for age of it. It was overdue, so we were able to get that seasoned and properly taken care of. The Impala, our crew car, one of our crew cars, somebody apparently curbed it, and so
It wasn't me.
Yeah, they didn't tell us either, so we don't know who it was, but you would hope a pilot would at least be able to drive. Oh, well, so we had to get a tire and wheel repaired on that, and they lost one of the hubcaps with it, so we ended up we don't put expensive stuff on there, so we ended up having to just order some inexpensive hubcaps that matched and replaced all of them, since one was somewhere probably in town somewhere. Somebody was disappointed when they picked it up, I'm sure, because it was pretty inexpensive. There's all kinds of lists I could have expanded on the general repairs of the mowers from just the hard use of getting started for the year, that I didn't want to get into all the details, because I could tell you which one was replacing which belt and which pieces and bolts were missing and things, but I didn't think you'd really want to get into all that good fun stuff. But just about every piece has had to have some extra work done on them since we've hit it hard. And I know when it's almost triple digits out there, you don't think about a snowplow, but we were able to work up a deal, and we're able to acquire a used one. If you recall, we had a snowplow on our CIP, our snow blade, as most people call it, on our CIP, and we gave it up in exchange for acquiring a new golf cart. Well, this was one we were able to acquire, a used one that somebody came about and told us about. And so we were able to go through the purchasing department and because of money we'd saved elsewhere through some equipment, we were able to acquire this piece. There is going to be a little retrofit, so this is a good time to get it so that our guys can get a chance and when they get finished mowing to fit it to, but it's designed to fit on our flatbed truck. So it's not one for the tractor like we have now. So now we'll end up having two, which is works out great for both of our guys to be able to run a large, the one that's going to go on the truck is actually bigger than the one we currently have and is more versatile. And we will be able to have one guy in the truck and one on the tractor at the same time and make it a lot quicker. And
Well, I hope you never have to use it.
yeah, that's part of it too, is, you know, if you're, and I've said it more than once, if you're prepared, then you won't have to use it, but if you're not prepared, then you will. So, also I could almost just leave this this Quonset door repair. I could probably just leave that on there every month because that building has really outlived its useful life, but we're continuing to work on it and continuing to keep little parts and pieces that keep getting messed up. We keep screwing them back together or welding it back together or bending it, whatever it is we need to do to keep it going. Also, you'll see a lot of just different vegetation work that's been done as far as trying to kill off some grass and then we've started using a retardant to slow the growth underneath some fencing, especially the black fence out front, because you really don't want it dead.
The
So,
brown
but
showing up, I guess.
yeah, it's
Right.
so we're hoping that'll help that out so it won't look so bad. But
How does a retardant work versus a weed kill?
it slows the growth.
And
so
how does it do that?
I'm not for sure exactly, because I know that it's been developed by some different engineers over time, because I know that B&A at one point in time years ago was a test case for it. But it changed the molecular buildup of and it doesn't get to accept the nutrients like it usually would. So it's just slowing it somehow. I'm not sure. But it doesn't, I mean, they claim it doesn't affect anything around it. It's not like it, you know, it washes off and goes downstream or something like that. It's supposedly just, it sinks into the soil and it works in the root system somehow, some way. So.
You probably shouldn't use that term retardant. It's cruel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, they've had good success with it at B&A over the years, and some places at B&A they just actually have put artificial turf in some spots. But they use it around a lot of light fixtures, and that's ideal because it's a constant issue around light fixtures that you want to control the vegetation, but then you start removing it, and then you end up getting it to then it starts to erode. So the idea behind it is to be able to, what they would ideally like to do is have a Bermuda grass and then play a retardant on it, and then it won't sprout and it'll stay low growing.
I'm curious about the rabbits.
That's what you see when you've been walking by the little
Yeah.
cones that are right out
I
there.
wondered.
Yeah,
Okay.
James found those, not on purpose, but he found those out there. And so,
You have a little warren.
what's that?
You have a little warren,
Yeah.
little warren of rabbits.
Yep. Is it?
Watership.
Is Mama Rabbit no longer with us? Is that?
No, it was one of the little ones that's no longer with us, but
Tragic
there's still a little,
accident?
yeah,
No.
but the rest of them were
Gotcha.
been saved. As far as I know, they're still there. I haven't been out there to check on them recently because I didn't want to get any closer. Once we put the cones up, we all stayed away on purpose, just so we wouldn't scare mom off. But the last time somebody checked on them, they were still there.
Cool.
Paul, on that snow blade, is it in a fixed position, the new used one that you're gonna put on the truck, or is it, are you able to change the?
Actually, it's got multiple functions on it. It can change shape and tilt and raise, and it can be a V from both directions. So you can have it, you can cup it and hold it this way or straighten it and have it tilted from one side to the other. So it's very multifunctional. It comes with, has lights on it, so we can, if we need to, can use it at night if we so choose.
And the flatbed has the hydraulic controls and the PTO and everything that it needs?
All that's based on is put on it. It's on the plow itself. So the only thing we've got to do is retrofit the brackets to fit a little bit because it was designed for a four-wheel drive vehicle.
Yeah.
And our truck is only a two-wheel drive vehicle, so it has a little ground clearance issues that we'll have to weld onto the frame a little bit to make that work. But Public Works has also offered us expertise on that as well.
Cool.
To make sure that they can make it fit and make it work. But it's all self-contained, so all they do is they'll roll down the window and pull the remote inside the window with the heater running, and guys will be good to go.
How much was it, Paul?
$2,500 or $2,800.
Sounds like a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's not bad.
Yeah, somebody had brought it down from up north and ended up never having to use it that much, and so they were ready to get rid of it. They were happy to get it out of their shop, and we were happy to take advantage of it.
Absolutely.
Great.
They gave us all kinds of little accessories and things too.
Okay. Anything else? Any more reports?
You have, in your package that you received the email that Lisa sent you, you have the financial reports for May. As you know, being at the end of the year, it'll be a bit before you get the final FY, just because of having to close out all the financial numbers for the year and all the last little bills and things of that nature that are trying to get in that Kay's trying to put through, plus implementing the new budget. So it takes her a bit to finalize the FY, but is there any questions on anything that you came across in May?
It might be cleared up once we get the final numbers, but it did look like we were off compared to budget on the bottom lines. That me misreading it, or am I looking at it correctly? Looked like year-to-date totals, we were under by 264,000.
We are. But one of the things that I like to point out is the fact that the MTSU's lease is not in there. It's not being reported under our code. It's being reported under the general fund. So if you put that in there, then we're actually to the positive.
Any other questions?
No, good.
The biggest financial number for this year's for the new budget and things of that nature is fuel cost and the rise in fuel sales. But with those fuels, with that cost, you have the revenue that balances it out. But unfortunately, the way our budget presents itself, you don't really see that as well when it comes to budget.
Right, because the way the county or the city has to do accounting is you recognize the entire load. There is no cost of goods sold, right?
Yeah, the revenues are over here completely different, running
Yeah.
as its own. It almost looks like its own budget at the back of the pages. So by the time you get to the budget, your eyes are pretty glassed over and you don't really see you don't see the revenue side.
Okay,
Motion to approve the reports.
okay, motion's been made. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, that passes. Okay, we switched up the agenda, so we'll start with new business. First on the list is hangar construction.
Okay, so as was mentioned before, I just wanted to update you on like what I said with the photos of all the different scenarios that we have with the 4 hangars underway, but we've also been approached by 3 other individuals wanting to build hangars here as well. So we'll see if they come through. We've been trying to work with our consultant to come up with any place whatsoever we can put some more hangars
I was just
in
gonna
a
ask you
reasonable amount of time.
Okay.
Nice.
And one of the things that we have determined because of a change in classification with our airport layout plan, the future one that's underway right now, we will be able to put a couple of hangars beside Hodges or HEC and then also Boyce. We would be able to put some smaller hangars there. Now the utilities are an issue there because we do not have any sewer service in that area. So that's another thing that we would have to look into in the future of expanding. The sewer stops, the low pressure system stops there at Arion. We did not put it just because of the cost associated with having to run it under the ramp or under the taxiways and things of that nature. We've left Hodges and Boyce on a shared septic system But in the way that the layout of the hangars that we've been talking about, that would still allow for that septic to be there. So there's a possibility that they could share, assuming that Hodges is willing, because there's just such little amount of water that's used in those hangars anyway, that there's a possibility that they could just connect to his existing septic system, assuming they can handle it. But this shouldn't be that big of a deal, but we still will have to work on getting water from, because there is water there. We just have to be able to run it properly.
And those won't impact the runway protection zone for approaches.
No, it will not. That's one of the things that this, there's good and bad that came. We meet all the criteria for what they call a C2 designed airport, but our traffic doesn't match that design. And so they're downgrading it to a B2, which is allowing us to have a whole lot more, even after we spent a ridiculous amount of money fixing our safety area and things like that. They're downgrading us, so we're able to take advantage of it. And so another thing is, which we'll talk about here in just a second, will allow for us to do some other work here for the shade port request. I'll be going over here shortly. But with the construction of the hangars, we have, of course, was on the agenda to discuss, and they're going to be, Mr. DeWeese is here now and be able to talk about his construction a little bit too, but they're moving forward with putting their ramp in now. That's one of the last stages that they have. The guys are out there laying all the forms and probably might even be delivering rock today. Depends on if they've gotten it all done or not. They were out there working on it earlier today. And so they've got the doors up so that they can finish up that ramp and they'll be able to move in shortly, he hopes. They're still waiting with Duck River. You got that report last month. You're getting it again. That Duck River still has not provided them electricity. They have reached out. The mayor did talk to them, and they've reached out to the mayor. They've reached out to Mr. DeWeese about their providing service, but they offered no promises as to when still.
Do they not know what their schedule is in terms of putting in
I
electricity?
think there's a lot of
They have
things.
no
I
idea.
think there's a lot of things they don't know.
Yeah.
But I'll try to save that because we're being recorded. But there's I think from what the last thing I was told is that they're using some contractors to do some of those. They're not using necessarily all the demand that they've had. They're not using just their employees. They're using contractors. So I think they're at the mercy of the contractors. But there's all kinds of different things that could, I don't know what the issue is. Truthfully, they're not really explaining themselves.
Oh, you mentioned that with the expansion coming up or growth, we had been downgraded because we weren't using what we've been upgraded to do. And so with the new hangars or with new growth, in anticipation of a future upgrade, are you going to, at that point, impinge on the ability to use, will you have to move the buildings or will you build them so that
No.
they won't be in the way?
No, I've talked about that and asked about that. And the biggest concern is obstruction analysis, and they'll be lit. You can work through that process with putting lights on.
So you'll be okay.
Yeah, because it's the ones that are most expensive is when you have to start relocating taxiways and runways,
Exactly.
not runways, but taxiways and different things of that nature. And we won't have to do that. We're not impending on a taxiway safety area or a runway safety area or anything of that nature. So we're not, it's not going to be anything major. I wouldn't do that. But also, as was mentioned on the other two smaller hangars that are under construction right now, they have completed the metal work on Mr. Stover's hangar. The door outer shell has been covered, and so it's been set up. They have not been hooked up to electricity yet to do any type of work on the door except for its own version of a swing, just so that they could install it. The Azure hangar, I'm not sure exactly when or if he's even ordered it yet, but the metal package is what's next for them and the door. They're going to look, it's going to look exactly the same as the one that's there next to it. So They are, like I said, that because of some drainage, because it is so flat up there and some other issues that Dr. George has even noticed and others, they agreed to do some drainage work through there to pipe water and push it out towards the west. And that has been done. And so that after they do that, then they'll start bringing in gravel and for the ramps that are going to be built out there.
Is there one more spot for hangar up there? I'm trying to remember what else is left out there.
There is a possibility, and David has spoken with me about it, of possibly putting like a lean-to on the side of their hangar or something to that effect, shop base or something like that. But unfortunately, looking at the way the utilities were ran, things like that, we could not put another full-size hangar there. We could put a smaller one maybe, but I'm not sure that meets our criteria.
Because the lines come diagonally across that area. Is that?
Yeah, it cuts into the back corner.
Yeah.
You start getting too far over and then you start pushing up against some of the other underground utilities that are there too. And so it's just,
Yeah.
it probably is just, it does not. You would also end up having to expand the ramp and a few other things. It just doesn't seem to make much sense right now for that. But it would make sense if they could build a lean-to and add a shop to that building. Because that's one of the discussions, as a matter of fact, that's out there with Azure. It's two different things. One is up front of being able to have a space to do some triage work for MTSU. Before their main buildings are built, to have a building there that can get them, an aircraft in the ferry permit, a ferry scenario, if something were to happen to it, take it back to Murfreesboro, or even some of the more basic 50 hours or something like that they could do there if necessary. Just to give their maintenance guys a place to have something in out of the weather to do some work if they need to on an aircraft that needs to go back to town, like we've had here, where we've had a couple of different airplanes that they've had to work on our ramp, where they can tow them and put them inside when there's been engine issues or something like that, or wheel issues or something like that they've had to do fit on our ramp. But after that, they've talked about, there's been some discussion about relocating maybe one of their 135s down here, airplanes down here. So we'll see how that works. And I'm sure if they do that, then they'll want some office space or something like that, or it could just be David has plenty of toys. He likes, when I say toys, it's tools. David's got tools everywhere. So he would probably be wanting to build some storage for tools to work on those pieces of equipment and things like that.
What is the plan for MTSU's maintenance? Are they going to 100-hour or annuals, or let's just stay with 100-hour and annuals? Are they going to go back to Murfreesboro to have it done up there, or is Charles going to do it?
They are, according to the current plan, once the construction is complete, everything will be done here.
So they will have a maintenance facility here.
They're building not only lab space for instruction of maintenance, but they're also building a separate area just for their fleet and for their entire fleet of aircraft to do maintenance throughout for all of them, and they'll rotate them through. Imagine, Doug could probably tell you, it probably takes 60 airplanes to keep 40 in the air.
Exactly.
And so they're going to constantly be rotating between the 50 and 100 hours. All that'll be done here on site eventually. But until such time as that's built, which could be as long as, they hope not, but it could be 3 years from now when that's done, the first phase that's going to be in operation here, that's where there'll be some triage work done. They have already designed if you were here, when you noticed that for Aviation Day, that the van that was here that had MTSU on the side of it and said MTSU maintenance, aerospace maintenance on the side or something. They designed and built that just to be able to come down here and do work on the aircraft here in case they needed to do something and to fix it up enough to get it to Murfreesboro if necessary, or take care of some of the more minor things they could take care of here on site and get it back in the air.
Like a mass unit then.
Sort of get something to that effect. But I'm sure Doug can give you more details. That's something I think over the next, once this ramp is completed, I think because it's probably not going to line up. The completion is probably not going to line up exactly with their school semester, but so they'll be working on their logistics after that. And that'll give them a little time to figure out what happens so that if this particular scenario happens, they'll be able to do this or that. And, they'll have a little time so that when they can hit the ground running when the next full semester starts.
Kind of a good segue into number B, Azure's project.
Yes. Again, you can look at some of the photos down on on page 3, down at the very bottom. If you could, it's a small photo, but if you can look close, that's not a small dozer.
No.
So that is, they have cleared all the vegetation. They have cleared all the topsoil. They have stacked all the topsoil. They have, they've started proof rolling. Right now, what you see, where you see that X right now on in the photo, the excavator, he's doing, they're working on the retention pond or detention pond there just to catch water off that ramp. There's a certain size, and there's also, that's an area that we have a lot of drainage that comes off of that entire 30 acres that we purchased, all drains to that one little spot right there. When we have we had like 2 little waterfalls that would come through there when after it would be draining from the street. And so they'll be there they're building that to slow down the water off the main ramp, and then also slow it coming out from the main tract of land. But they have, they're moving along quite well because of the fact that the weather, they just hit it right. They were surprised at the lack of rock. They have, they were expecting to be doing maybe even some blasting if they had to. They put it in the numbers, as a matter of fact, to have that as a backup. But so far, he says the biggest thing they've had to remove was about the size of a truck hood. Truck hood is the way he described it, rock, which is very surprising because we've seen rock everywhere, but I guess right there it's still nice. So they're going to be having to bring in material, as a matter of fact, because of part of their design, which is part of the miscommunication. I'm not sure where it fell, if because we had talked with, and Azure was involved in all the different discussions, but that if we needed the extra parking, they thought that they could do the automobile parking on that site with the 5.5 acres or 6 acres that they've leased. Well, they designed it as if they were getting the parking lot behind the feed store that was to be a lease between us and MTSU only if it was necessary after we acquired it. Because for 2 reasons. One, we didn't want to hold up the project because we hadn't been able to acquire that piece of property, and they could move on forwards with the design and the design build. Well, they took it into that they had it. And so they were planning on using some of that material off there. They were going to use that to fill to the south. And so they're still needing some more material off of it. They're going to be bringing in material to try to level things up, but they're basically pushing everything from north to south to try to level up that land. And they said originally that it would be 3 months at the most. They're hoping this right now, based on the way they've been working, they're going to beat that schedule. They are, they haven't given me exact timelines just yet because they wanted to get into the proof rolls, as they said, to find out more details on it. They've had a couple of little GPS issues with some of their equipment because surprising, they've got some relatively new equipment. It's very impressive, but with the fancier the equipment, the more chances of a software mistake or something like that. So, but it's moving very well for a project of that size. When you're moving 5 or 6 acres worth of, really it's 6 acres worth of dirt has been touched and moved and addressed.
Impressive pile of dirt I drove out
It
there.
is.
Yeah.
Like there one day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once it won't be long before that pile goes away. They've already started moving it back again, moving it to the south.
And they'll add more on top of that.
They'll be adding more, mainly rock, come in after that, though, to get it all out, to meet proper grades and things of that nature. They want to control it with rock.
So at this point, at what point in time will we see all those fancy MTSU airplanes hanging out on some brand new tarmac?
That's a very good question. That might be one for the gentleman sitting behind you, as far as that's concerned. How much to the time they'll need after? I would think they'd want to get them down here as soon as they get a place to park them.
Yeah.
I would think.
We're expecting and still hoping to begin our temporary operations in the spring semester. So we still have to get our modular facility built, it's designed and ready to be constructed, but, this moved by Azure some recent construction news to us, and so, we gotta get that modular facility done, but still, hope for, like I said, spring. And probably start with a dozen aircraft.
Wow.
Well, they're under the same situation electricity wise as Mr. Deweese and Quigley are, because of the fact that they don't have electricity there either. And they'll have to attach to the system. The elevation is probably going to be an issue that they might end up having to do some more work on. They'll probably end up having to put their own pump in. I think originally they were hoping that they would be able to attach to the pump of Louise and Quigley, but because of the elevations, it doesn't look like the gravity feed's probably going to work, and they might end up having to pump themselves
For the sewage.
to the sewer to release that. And the same thing with, we got to get water to all of them as well. And we're working with our consultant right now to develop a design for utilities for all of that. And now that everything's laid out, we can tell where we can go between the sewer and the electrical and all the different right of ways that are needed through there. We can lay it out properly, coming from our water that's not far away. It's just, we just gotta get it taken care of and get it laid out. Our public works does not have the time to be able to do it. So we've got to work with a contractor to make that work. So we've got to get it designed out officially to be able to do it with the contractor.
Good to see dirt being moved, but sounds like there's still a lot of moving parts. Targets could change and.
Yes, that's true.
Okay. C is MTSU project land option. That I assume is different than what we've just been talking about.
Yes, you'll see a letter that has MTSU's.
Did you hand them out a copy of it? Because I didn't put it in the packet.
Yes, I did.
Yes.
I just now did. And there's an extra one there if you'd like one, if anybody needs one. I know you've got electronic copies, but you've got hard copies. So this is, this letter is just a notification. It fulfills a requirement in their lease. If you recall, there was an option that the authority actually recommended a no to, but the city said yes. And with that option, though, was required a notification of intent by July 1. So that's what this letter is their intent. We've met and there's still some discussion is exactly how the 4.8 acres is to lay out, because we've determined that the actual exhibit that was attached did not measure out to be 4.8 acres. It was more like 3.34 or something like that. It was a smaller drawing than what they realized. So obviously the drawing was not to scale, but in turn, I think we've discussed with them that the shape of the drawing itself does not work for.
Kind of a L shape.
L, right.
Well, we
It was.
kept calling it a boot. Yeah, we kept calling it a boot shape that we kept saying it doesn't make sense.
Did the lease call out 4.8 acres or did
It
it
did.
just call out? Okay.
Yes, and that's where they're requesting that full amount with the shape to be determined. I think I'm not. I don't have the letter memorized, but the letter was fairly simple.
They'll be asking council to approve a different shape. And they've indicated, we all sat around this table, was a lot of us. How many weeks ago? 3 weeks ago?
I guess it's been pushing that.
The mayor was here. They want to basically go back instead of having all that road frontage on 231. So basically the little tail of the L, they want to push that back. So that's still to be determined about what that'll be. They'll have to survey it out, all those kind of things. But they did want to make certain that they met the requirement of the lease, that they notify the city that they plan on exercising that option for 4.8 acres prior to July 1st. So they've done that.
Okay. So this is just informing, there's no.
No action.
Yeah.
No, I just want to make sure everybody was up to date. I'm up to date. The authority's name is on the lease, so as well as the city. So just to make sure that you guys are up to date as to what was
Right.
thinking about.
And I'm sure Paul will bring it to you when they start talking about
How it's actually.
how it's gonna be laid out. I can tell you it received a, favorable reaction from the city so far, because the city would much prefer to have road frontage. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Beach store property purchase.
They're back in the game.
Yes.
So,
Mr. Augustine?
Moving on that.
yeah, thanks to the state. So I'll lay that out there just to give an idea as a reminder of what we're talking about. That's not exact, because what I have requested, I've requested from based on discussions with the property owners. They are willing to still sell, but one of the things they've asked for is they've actually asked for two things. One was already we were doing anyway, so it didn't really matter, but you see the most western line there that runs the back of their property, the one that was redrawn.
Yeah.
It shows it 10 foot from a metal building, a metal shed. They're asking for 20 feet. So they want additional 10 feet. They want that line moved 10 feet over. I guess the original owner thought 10 feet would be enough to get a truck back there, but I think the manager there convinced them, even though I talked to my employees that have been here longer than me, they've never seen a vehicle back there behind that building. The only time they've ever seen those doors open is when the storm blew them open. But she wants to be able to put a semi truck back there just in case. Wants to be able to put a trailer back there or something if they needed to get around it. So they have asked for that line to be moved 10 feet. I hope that doesn't delay us, because it seems like every time I have to make a change to that drawing, they disappear on me for a while and I can't seem to get any. But I spoke with Tom Hayes with Barton or Burton. I can't remember exactly how the name, the holding company that owns Celebration Feed out of Bowling Green, Kentucky. And he brought in one of the senior partners that same day, and they agreed to it on the phone and said, that's the only change, that and to install a fence, which that's
Across the back, all the way
across the back to separate our property and their property, which that was in the planning. And so Azure is covering that cost because they already have that cost. But I mean, Azure was going to be putting a fence anyway because of the fact that they destroyed their fence. And they actually messed up some other pieces of material that were stacked up there from one of the other contractors, because we've got so many different contractors here. We've had some issues with some trash and some other things like that too, that we've having to work through. That's a whole different story that we're taking care of. But so that was a good mistake that got us back in there, and it looks interesting back there, not having some of that vegetation out there now.
Yeah,
It looks nice and clean, but it does look like that they feel that they need that parking lot, so we need to move on forward with that. And they're just sort of flip-flopping their work, and so they're hoping that we can get it closed out pretty soon. If we can get that drawing done to back up the closing documents for Virginia's office, just, where the exact location of that piece of property is.
Does that change the amount of the price of the property by moving it?
I've discussed that with my boss, and we didn't want to derail that. So the price is going to stay the same. The price has been approved by council. The dollar amount's been pushed in Kay's budget. So everything on that part, and if I make that change, then it's going to have to go back through, and it very well could delay things more. So he said for 10 feet, he said he agreed that it would just be best just to let it go as it does. I think now if it was reevaluated, it would probably be worth more based on what. So I think I think it was.
So the fair trade.
I think it's a fair trade for 10 feet. It's not, I mean, it might affect half a parking spot across there. If you look at it, I mean, they'll just shift some things just a little bit. We had talked to them just about even having the parking lot left as gravel because it was going to be temporary. It's not going to, so it's not like you're really going to paint it or anything like that. I don't know if they're going to pave it. They might have decided to pave it since they're already going to have asphalt here for the ramp, but we'll see. And so if it's gravel, they won't even know that the difference is 10 feet. Nobody will notice.
Right.
It might take a little bit of an island away or something like that. But I just want to keep you guys up to almost on the, there's again, that's not something to necessarily be voted on. I just wanted to make sure that people were aware that, and all those that were aware that were involved in that, because you did request it originally. And so, of the,
Been a
of
while.
that, yeah, it has been quite a while.
Minute.
Yeah, been a minute. So I wanted to remind you about that and just also inform you of that small change that really just was. I mean, we're welcome to a vote to change, to put it out there to change it, but I don't know that it's really necessary. I think it just slows the process down a little bit.
Okay, and then the agenda item we added, was discussion of grant fund.
Yes, I apologize for having to add that at the last minute. I was actually submitting for another grant request that had already been approved through us here and through council. It was an amendment to time for the airport layout plan. And when doing that and discussing it with our consultant, I noticed that a project was sitting there underway, that application underway, and I started talking to him about it. And to fit the proper calendars, we started going backwards from where we needed it to be, and to fit between your schedule, the city council schedule, and the Tennessee Aeronautics Commission schedule. I needed to get it on this agenda so that we could get it into the pipeline. It is a project request for design of a shade port, plane port, whatever. Some people call them shade ports, some people call them plane ports. And it is the reason why it was originally on our ACIP. So it's probably not the first time you've heard this.
Right.
But what's happened is the pot of money that we're pulling from is a different pot. So originally, aeronautics requires that you do a prelim design, and then you do another amendment for a design build, and then you do an amendment for construction. Well, we're pulling the money from the bipartisan infrastructure law money, and they don't allow for prelim. They want the whole thing. So now this is in the aeronautics pipeline to be funding they're requesting $75,000. It's a request for $75,000 of bipartisan infrastructure law money. Our local share will be 5%, 5% from the state government. And what it'll do is in this area right here, just to the south of our T hangars, would allow for it'll asphalt that, it's designed and fix the drainage problems that we have in there. And then in turn, put shade covers. It'll look like a carport, or plane ports.
Over the top here,
Over the
turn
top.
tie downs.
So the cop, well, it'll expand that back. So we won't have Wayne saying that it's too close.
Yeah.
Because it'll actually be able, because of the fact of fixing this drainage, doing the site prep and paving or concreting back through here, you'll be able to move it back to where it needs to be, far enough back that it won't be a factor for anybody taxiing through there.
Then get it off the gravel.
And it'll be all, more than likely, it'll be all concrete. It'll cover that. And then there'll be, if you see it from above, it'll look almost similar to this.
Right.
If you looked at it from above, but when you look down below, it'll be all open except for the end caps will have, openings on it that won't go all the way to the ground, but it'll be pretty close. But that's what you'll see. And then you'll have a cover. Now this end right here, that's on this end will be taller so that we can get a bigger aircraft in there with a taller tail. That will allow for somebody to go straight in or can turn and then back it in. And then when they taxi out, they can go straight out with a bigger aircraft. And for something like a larger twin or something to that effect in that area. Other than that, most of these are going to be, there's just really room for 5 airplanes in there.
Right.
So you're talking something just a little bit, they'll be a little bit more narrow than a standard T hangar, but not much, but it'll definitely get them out of the weather somewhat. It'll cut, direct sunlight, any hail or hard weather that comes straight over the top. They'll be able to have their own designated area. Most of them will have, there'll be space for some kind of storage bin or something like that. They'll have electricity. And we met with a gentleman today that's looking at how to keep it off the grid. So looking at putting panels on top, and then part of that with batteries so that so it'll be LED lights inside and electricity to plug into will be done from batteries. And so we won't be utilizing the electricity over there. As a matter of fact, he's doing some numbers right now to see if there can be enough panels put on that to take these off the grid, take put LEDs inside T hangers and take those off the grid as well. And just do it with solar. So that's the request is actually just for the design with Garver. So it would be a work order under Garver's existing 5-year contract that we have with them. And the request would go through aeronautics and this would be pending approval from the Aeronautics Commission. Because it is bipartisan infrastructure money, it does have to go before the Aeronautics Commission. And they only meet certain times of the year. And so that's why I'm fitting it in the proper pipeline. We'll be on the, not July's agenda for the city, but the following. And then we'll be able to get it submitted.
So from us, you need a motion to move forward on this? Is that what?
You've got to recommend it to the city council if it's a good idea. I mean, I'm hoping you agree with me. It's a good source of income. It's been, and it's, so it's something you could charge. You wouldn't charge as much as a T hanger, but you would charge quite a bit. I mean, you can still, because anything with cover is rare. Mr. Deweese could attest to that. But
Trying to think of what other airports around here have that. I can't think of any.
Gallatin used to, they've rearranged it a little bit, but the one who does the most of that in Tennessee is Downtown Island in Knoxville. They have almost 100 airplanes under plane ports.
Wow.
It used to at BNA on Murfreesboro.
Yeah, that's right. Long
That
time
was on
ago.
Murfreesboro Road, yes, on that farther side right there facing Murfreesboro Road. Those were plane ports.
We have them in Greenville, Mississippi, and they come in very handy, especially when there's threat of hail.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I would entertain a motion if someone wants to make one.
I'm trying to put it together. So this is a request for design, right?
Correct.
That, for the plane ports.
It's a request to request, I guess. For me, it's a request to request it.
Would I move that we push this request for the design of the plane ports?
A second.
Push it into the pipeline as it needs to be.
Okay, we have a semblance of a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. That motion passes. All right, we're gonna go backwards in time now and go to old business. Mr. Deweese is here, so the Deweese and Quigley ground lease is on our agenda.
And here is a sort of a generic copy if necessary. I don't know if you want it or not, or would like to see that. So just printed up one because it's about 20 pages, but
So I don't know who I think all of y'all were here at the last meeting, when we started working on getting the lease finished and talked about Duck River and things like that. One of the things that came up at the end of the lease is the annual lease amount was higher than what Tim and I thought we'd agreed to. Not by a lot, but we have since kind of determined how this happened. When we started talking about all this and getting ready to build the hangars and all was a couple of years ago. And while we're working through the city and getting things approved and all through the city, apparently there was a board meeting we were not privy to. We were privy to, but we were not here, and they kind of voted in an increase between the time we discussed of building the hangars and then now, of course, the time we have hangars built. The difference is not a lot. We're just kind of asking the board if they would kind of just honor what we assumed was an agreement, prior to. I think it's a difference of like $400 a year. Difference in two, 30 cents a foot is what we thought we were going to get. And then at this last board meeting, when we found out, it was higher. So it was a true, honest it was an agreement we thought we kind of had already kind of verbally entered into, but it turns out that that's not the case. So kind of want to go for the board kind of.
Do we remember why we had voted for an increase?
So I think from reading, Paul's done a bunch of research on this, and has provided in our package all the yellow highlighted things. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's no big deal.
Paul's done nothing.
I asked you
for all the work, Lisa.
I made the phone call.
Oh, well, there you go. So I remember on the last meeting.
It
we
was
sort of-
actually.
We sort of punted and said, we're gonna wait till we find out what we had voted for in months past. And it looked like the 30 cents comes from the construction part of it, right? And then when it goes to a permanent lease, that the standard rate is 35 cents. Is that correct, in what I'm reading?
That's the way it was,
And that was a standard lease we adopted, what, a year or two ago?
whenever,
It was in 2021.
2021.
2021.
I didn't realize it was that far back. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing how.
Yeah.
COVID's
Time
messed
just
up.
flies.
So the amount that Deweese and Quigley are paying now is 30 cents a square foot, is that right?
No. And that's for construction.
What is the amount you're paying now?
What was the final amount? It came to 25, 20 or
Oh,
something.
you talking about what's the
What was said at the meeting?
was 35 cents a square foot. This is what, yeah, you're currently under a 30 cents lease. That was a construction lease.
Right.
So what you're paying now is 30 cents?
Well, we haven't actually paid anything yet because of the city, but that we assumed, and wrongfully so, that was the agreement. We didn't realize that once construction was done, it's going to go up to 35%. This last meeting is the first time we ever heard that.
That's been our standard, is that right? Our standard is the construction part is 30 cents and then the permanent part is 35 cents, right?
That was what was established with
In 2021.
Mr.
Mr. Stewart is what,
It's-
that's where it started at. You had several people coming in.
Mhm.
And so you all decided to set up a standard at that time, and that was in October of 2021. And I think Mr. Stewart was the first one that you gave that to. It was Bill Stewart, gave him a construction rate of 30 cents a square foot. And those leases were 2 years to give them time to get it built.
Right.
And then it would go into a permanent ground lease rate at 35 cents a square foot with a built-in escalation clause of 3% annually.
Right. That's consistent with what I remember. And is that consistent with the leases since then?
That is what we, the other two leases are, everything we've gotten so far have been construction leases. Dr.
Right.
George is the only one that has an extended
And that
lease and he
predates
predated.
this.
Yes. So we haven't, we've only done, we have currently have 4 construction leases out there. We have not, no one's come back for they're the first ones coming back for the converting a construction lease to the long term so that those 2 years didn't affect their, giving them basically 32 years versus a 30-year. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Right. I mean,
That being said, it's our fault. We misunderstood, from the beginning. We did not realize there was a different amount on the construction as opposed to the actual lease amount.
That's, so by missing the previous meeting or the meeting that you missed doesn't really factor into your misunderstanding there.
Well, there was an increase in there.
But there was a misunderstanding as to why it increased.
Well, the whole amount that we knew from the very first time we ever talked, which Tim talked to you in 2020, and that was actually even after Jim George even started his. It was considerably lower than that. We knew there was an increase. We assumed the increase was to 30 cents. We did not realize it had turned into another lease at 35.
That it was a differential or
It's just, it's not, if anything, it's our fault for not doing due diligence. I mean, like I said, that amount, the very first time I literally heard that amount was at the last board meeting. That's why I questioned it. That's why I didn't really want to obviously talk in front of it because I just was kind of uneducated about it.
But I think if I recall, you made the motion and you said our standard rate. I don't think you gave an actual, I don't think you stated a rate in the motion.
Monetary.
And so that's probably another reason why you
Right.
you didn't hear a rate at the time that you, because I think you're the one that motioned approved there.
It's set as a preset rate.
Yes.
Yeah,
preset
so-
rate or something like that.
Do you have them, were they approved then?
Yes, I do. That's all the minutes, the ones that deal with the rate, and then the ones that deal with Mr. Deweese, Mr. Cleveland.
And that was in April of 2022.
I remember those discussions about having a different rate for construction versus permanent. We wanted to give consideration for the additional expenses that someone has to go through to to build a hangar and some of the delays that you've experienced with permits and Duck River and all these things not being able to get done on time. So that's why we set rates separate rates. I'm remembering that.
But at this point, look, we've got a long 30-year relationship ahead of us. At this point, I don't think that the dollar amount's really worth even discussing. I'll bow down. That's what I think. I just don't think that it was simply a misunderstanding by us and nothing more is what it appears.
I'm really glad that you guys are here. I'm excited about all this dirt being moved around at the airport because I've been around here for decades like you guys have as well. And for a long time, nothing happened here. And so we're just really excited to see new faces, new airplanes, new dirt being moved, new hangars going up. Saying that, one of the other issues that we've had over the years is that there has never been any kind of standards in terms of standard rates and standard leases, things that Paul could just take for granted. Okay, I know the board has approved this, the city has approved this. I can go out and market this and I can tell, so I can look somebody in the eye and say, this is what the number is. And, and so I'm kind of inclined to just say we need to stick with standards.
Right.
Because I hate thinking that we set yet another precedent that gets changed and as you said, it's just a small amount anyway, so
Over the life of the hangars up there, it's really kind of insignificant, so I kind of we really withdraw and I'll just concede that the standard lease that you have is way too not a lot.
Okay. And I think now that you have brought that to our attention, then we need to do a better job than when we talk about a lease and actually bring up those numbers when we
highlight the numbers.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so there is no misunderstanding. Okay.
Just for information purposes as well, just to clarify, the lease that we have with Azure, even though the final square footage has not been completely determined, based on an estimated square footage, they are paying 35 cents a square foot for that piece that all that dirt that we just discussed that they're moving is at the 35-cent rate.
Yeah.
It's just not a long-term lease compared to what it's a shorter-term lease.
There again, the rate remains consistent.
Yes.
Okay.
Just on another note, by the way, Duck River called me yesterday. They called Paul too. I'm not going to count my chickens yet. We have service releases on the buildings up there. They've been inspected. They're ready for power. So it's kind of put it in their lap a little bit. The mayor has actually probably did us pretty good too. He made some calls up there too. So I appreciate that. Anything I do appreciate that. So we're just trying to get in, and we've had, them not putting those poles in puts us back about, we should be in the hangars right now. It probably put us back 2 months at least, but we've got it to where we can proceed now. I'm looking forward to MTSU, being here. I've lived with him, learned how to fly with him in Murfreesboro. I don't care what anyone else says, it made me a better pilot.
Yeah.
They made me spot traffic a lot better. So as far as that goes, I look forward to it.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm thinking that we can all learn from the past experiences at the Murfreesboro Airport and help work with our partners at MTSU, and so that we all know what to expect when coming into the pattern. It's not a hard problem to solve. So really looking forward to that. Okay, well, it doesn't look like we need to take any action on this.
And I think,
but thank you.
I'm trying to remember exactly how that was.
So we left it off just having approved the number to submit.
Yeah, they approved the lease based on an agreement on the number, and it sounds like we've agreed on the number, so I feel
that
comfortable
sufficient?
with it.
Okay,
As long as you feel comfortable with that there is not another vote that's required, that's great.
Not required.
Okay.
great. Let's see, we went backwards I don't see anything else on the agenda. Other business and announcements. Anyone have announcements or? No? Then my favorite time of the day is call this meeting adjourned.
Adjournment.
Thank you. How's it going?